Greetings to everyone who is joining us today for our Center for Ag Profitability webinar series. We're pleased to have you with us today and privileged to have the opportunity to talk to Robert Lawson and Conor Ward from the USDA Natural Resource Conservation Service State Office here in Nebraska. Today's program is focused on USDA NRCS programs and details, and it's a prime opportunity to talk about all of the opportunities, all of the programs and opportunities that NRCS has for producers and landowners across the state. NRCS itself is celebrating an anniversary that Robert will talk about here in a bit, and it's a reminder of an important role that NRCS plays in our nation's conservation and environmental policy. When we talk about policy in an educational sense, we think about the role of regulation, we think about the role of markets, and we also think about the role of incentives. And incentives in the middle are exactly where NRCS's voluntary conservation programs fit. And so they have a tremendous opportunity, tremendous role to work with producers and landowners on many things to help establish and maintain and support good conservation practices and planning. I will introduce Robert here to talk about the history of the NRCS and to introduce the program. Robert is the state conservationist for the NRCS program, and we're pleased to have you join us today, Robert. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Brad, and good day to everyone out there joining in. Let me just say a quick thanks to Brad and to Ryan. This is my first experience here since I've been here with Nebraska NRCS to have the opportunity to get in front of you all with this webinar series. So thanks for the invite and looking forward to it. You know, we have a lot of things to be proud of and to share out with Nebraska NRCS. And specifically, like Brad mentioned, that we are. This is a perfect timing, perfect week for us to be here on this Thursday, sharing the updates from NRCS, because here this coming Sunday, April 27th, it's going to mark the 90th anniversary of the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service. So NRCS was first established back in 1939 and as the Soil Conservation Service. The new USDA agency represented the culmination of the efforts of a man named Hugh Hammond Bennett. And while many things have changed in the past 90 years, Bennett's vision of a scientifically and technically rigorous interdisciplinary agency that's designed to work with local partners and our farmers and ranchers to tailor conservation solutions to the land, to benefit all of Americans, remains the heart of the agency mission as it is today. So, it's exciting times for us to be able to celebrate the 90th anniversary here on Sunday. And, the purpose of this presentation here is really, it's great timing, like I mentioned to Brad, because there's several different programs that have what we call the application sign up date here coming up here at the end of May. And so it's a perfect opportunity to share out different things happening across NRCS. As Conor's going to get into, our programs are voluntary and you can sign up at any time. However, there are different cutoff dates that we have. So I think that, just given an opportunity to share this out, I'm looking forward to that. Also, let me just say that our field staff is working with the farmers and the ranchers across Nebraska, specifically right now to work on their financial assistance program application. So that's something that we are working, our field staff's working on, and we're going to get into the different conservation programs, and we'll get the acronyms going. Hopefully we don't overload you in that sense. But with that, let me stop and introduce Conor Ward. Conor is our Assistant State Conservationist for Partnerships, and he's got the privilege and opportunity to be serving in the acting Assistant State Conservationist for Programs. So Conor is is an NRCS employee here located in the state office. And I'm going to turn it over to Conor to get into the details of a little bit about our agency, if you have heard of us before, and also to get into the weeds, if you will, a little bit about our different programs that we have available. So with that, Conor, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Brad. Thanks, Ryan. And then also everybody else that's in attendance today. And thanks for having us on. Ryan, just to double check, are you seeing the screen that you should be seeing now? It's not presenter view or anything.
Right. Yep. It looks good now. Thanks.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. Yes. Again, good afternoon. As Rob had told you all about, we have the luxury of celebrating our 90th anniversary here. A little bit of history on the NRCS. You know, we were founded 90 years ago by our founder, Hugh Hammond Bennett, as a result of the Dust Bowl, leading to the creation of then the Soil Conservation Service that then became the Natural Resources Conservation Service here in the late 80s, early 90s. We are a unique agency. We like to say that we are the primary private lands conservation agency. We get the luxury of working on private lands with our farmers and ranchers out there throughout the United States and all 50 states and territories we have a presence in. And we are founded, our roots are providing conservation technical assistance. Before any financial assistance programs were invented of the like that we'll primarily be discussing today. Our roots lie in providing that one-on-one technical assistance and treating natural resources concerns for our farmers and ranchers. We, along with that, of course, you know, we help those farmers and ranchers invest in operations to keep their working lands working. We are a conservation service, but again, we are out there on the landscape. We are primarily on working lands, and our efforts and our drive is to keep those working lands in a working state. We like to say that we are, you know, we're locally driven, locally led, voluntary, and science-based agency, and that's where our roots lie and what we provide to our farmers and ranchers. Again, we do offer, you know, technical assistance in treating natural resource concerns, as well as financial assistance if you voluntarily wish to do that. All of our services, you know, that technical assistance is provided free of charge to the American taxpayer. And then, of course, participation is all voluntary. We are a non-regulatory agency, meaning we carry no regulation authority. It's strictly voluntary based. So when we talk about technical assistance, what does that mean? Resource assessments. So you have an interest in treating some resource concerns or wanting to do certain conservation practices out on your lands. We go out there and do a full 9 steps of conservation planning that we call. Go out there and do an assessment and, you know, try and figure out and help you through the different methods and practices to treat those resource concerns. So that comes down to the practice designs and designing those practices. We have engineers, we have soil conservationists, resource conservationists out there in our 90-some field offices throughout the state that we offer those services. Monitoring aspects, monitoring the effects and whatnot of practices that we install or you install to, you know, follow up on those and have a follow-up conversation, follow-up methods or practices that may be needed to additionally treat those. So that technical assistance, we are there free of charge. And then, you know, if you're interested in going beyond that, we do offer a suite of different financial assistance programs that we'll be jumping in here today and giving you more information on. So financial assistance availability through NRCS. there's really four main Farm Bill funded programs that have been around for quite some time, with exception to maybe the RCPP program. So that's EQIP, Environmental Quality Incentives Program, CSP, the Conservation Stewardship Program, RCPP, the Regional Conservation Partnership Program, and then ACEP, which is our easement program. So I'm going to be starting today here with what we like to call our kind of our main program here. Pretty straightforward program that offers a suite of conservation practices. Contracts can range anywhere from 1 year to 5 years typically, and whatnot. But that here is our EQIP program. So what does EQIP do? Provides financial and technical assistance to address those natural resource concerns of yours, for improved water quality and air quality and all these different resource concerns that you may have out on the landscape. It is, I hate to use the word cost share, we're kind of going away from that, but it provides practice incentive payments for 100 plus different practices that are available through our EQIP program. We typically like to say we pay up to 75% of the cost of a given practice to implement that practice. So that's the typical range of, the typical payment that you could expect to pay, with the remaining percent of that coming out of your pocket. Common practices on croplands. Again, EQIP, we can do these practices on cropland, pasture, rangeland, and then also NIPF land, which is non-industrial private forest land as well. So we have practices that hit the mark on all those different types of land uses, and those land uses are eligible for EQIP. So common practices on cropland here in Nebraska that we implement a lot of. Those range from different management practices like no-till and cover crops to structural type practices, grassed waterways, windbreaks. Just kind of a listing here of some of the common ones that we offer on a cropland land use. Anything to treat, soil erosion, soil quality, where cover crops come into play, as well as soil erosion, grassed waterways, and water quality, and then as well as water quantity practices as well. Common practices on our range or pastureland type applications and contracts: prescribed burning, brush management, cross fencing, as well as infrastructure type practices such as fencing and livestock well and livestock tank systems. And also with those practices, the idea is to get have a prescribed grazing plan. So we also pay for that prescribed grazing plan or rotational grazing to be implemented in conjunction with those practices as well. Providing that prescribed grazing plan to you, drawing up that design to help facilitate these practices that you're wanting to implement. Just wanted to show you here by obligation and kind of what the numbers look like for EQIP throughout the 2018 Farm Bill. So of course, the 2018 Farm Bill, those years would be from 2019 up until 2025 here, hoping for a new Farm Bill, of course, at the end of our federal September fiscal year here. But just for clarity's sake, these numbers, obligation numbers, are from years 2019 through 2025. As you can see, lots of interest in cover crop throughout the last 20 years, I'll say even. So that continues to be a very popular practice through our EQIP program, having a cover crop anywhere from 1 to a 5-year contract through EQIP for planting that's annual cover crop for soil health, maybe erosion purposes as well. Brush management on our grazing lands. Of course, with the eastern red cedar control and those encroaching acres of eastern red cedar, that continues to be a very popular practice in combating those resource concerns on our grazing lands and keeping our grazing lands being able to graze those. We do a lot of water quantity practices, so conversion from gravity pivot irrigation to sprinkler systems to get more uniformity and efficiency in providing water for our crops. In conjunction with, the brush management and grazing lands practices, as I'd hit on, prescribed grazing to help you implement a rotational grazing system to better utilize that grassland resource. So as you can see here, these are the top 25 by obligation that we've obligated here throughout the 2018 Farm Bill. And just kind of a quick snapshot of what we've offered and what those dollars look like. So I wanted to include this slide here and as well. We offer, we are not biased on the size of your operation. We do work on all different land uses, as well as provide support, technical and financial assistance to different niche growing operations as well. So wanted to include, our organic assistance as well. We have different conservation practices that can help in different ranking pools as well that you're lumped into when applying for EQIP for transitioning to organic, if that's something you're interested in, as well as some separate competition, so to speak, for if you've already become organic certified as well. We have practices that are sometimes needed for those organic transitioning methods or currently organic. We have common practices to help you along with that. And then also for our small scale and urban type growers out there, the last couple of years, we've had a lot of assistance that we've been able to provide for those growers as well out on those landscapes. So a lot of that assistance comes in the form of providing those practice payments for high tunnel systems to extend the growing season for those crops that are grown under high tunnels, as well as low tunnel systems. Lots of interest in micro irrigation systems to help, maybe they're currently watering through just a hose attached to the house or something. We do have practices and designs for micro irrigation systems as well. And there was, all of these practices that are offered on a smaller scale are common practices that we've been using for years on the bigger type operations and bigger scale as well, that are mostly kind of acre type based. But we do have a lot of those practices now at the square foot units as well to offer those to some of those smaller growers out there. So I just wanted to put a plug in for the work we are doing on those landscapes for those individuals as well. I wanted to highlight some additional opportunities for historically underserved, what we call historically underserved producers. And those three categories you can see here are our new and beginning farmer and ranchers. So to qualify for new and beginning farmer and ranchers, you would have had either have not or have farmed for no more than 10 consecutive years to qualify for that beginning farmer and rancher. I'll call it an incentive right now. Socially disadvantaged producers, as well as limited resource producers, meaning your income, your on-farm income is below a certain county level threshold and whatnot. There's an online tool to see if you would qualify for that. But I wanted to highlight that because like I said, there's some additional opportunities for those producers if you qualify for one of those. One of them being opportunity for advance payments. So that would be receiving 50% of the financial assistance upfront to pay for the goods or services that are required to implement that conservation practice. So again, with EQIP, generally you would have to front the bill to the contractor or whoever you're having implement that practice or do the work. And then we reimburse you based on once we can go out there and certify that practice and it's been completed. So the advance payment option, again, is for, these historically underserved qualifiers that you would receive 50% of that to help pay for that upfront cost. Also eligible for higher payment rates. So I'd stated that EQIP, we like to generally say we pay up to 75% of a conservation practice. It would be up to 90% if you qualified for that historically underserved qualifier. Also, there's competition in your own ranking pools as well. So as opposed to being lumped in with all of the general EQIP applications, there's the ability to compete in beginning farmer specific pools. So it's essentially typically a little bit smaller pool and scale that you could compete in, just more opportunity. I did want to highlight before moving on to the next program here, we do offer disaster assistance through EQIP as well. So with the current wildfires that are going on out in the West and maybe throughout other parts of the state, I wanted to put in a plug that we do offer special initiatives to provide funding in those areas that have been affected by wildfires. And we intend on doing that here this year as well. So what we typically offer for that type of funding on those impacted wildfire lands is cover crop on impacted cropland acres to help, go and get some planting or seeding down on those acres where the residue was potentially burned off. Maybe you're concerned with the organic matter levels that you might have lost through the fire and whatnot, or erosion typically taking place if it's just barren ground. So cover crop on croplands, as well as prescribed grazing, or basically what that would be is a deferment payment on grazing lands for impacted grazing lands where the grass has been removed due to fire, of course, and you're needing some payment to help with that deferment on those acres, as well as mulching. So mulching would come into play a lot of the times with the fire trucks going through those fields in an effort to put out the fires and whatnot. There's some erosion that can take place with wheel tracks and whatnot. So mulching is also an alternative to just get some mulch down or cover and whatnot to help with those potential erosion issues. So again, just to recap, EQIP, it is one of our most popular programs that we've traditionally had out there. It's a competitive program. We get a lot of applications throughout the years for EQIP and a lot of interest. But it is a competitive program. It's ranking score based, so you're ranked along with all the other applications in different funding pools and whatnot, and it is fairly competitive. Moving along to our conservation stewardship program with EQIP, just to kind of show the difference here. It can be anywhere from, like I had stated, the contract can be from anywhere from 1 to 5 years in length, and then it could be on a tract of land that you have. Whereas CSP is a program that it's operation based. So it is, you have to enroll all your acres that you control or that are part of your operation. And it it's meant to be a stewardship program to reward current conservation activities or levels that you're maintaining out on the landscape. There's a payment for those, you know, for you doing that, there's an existing conservation payment for that, as well as incentivizing you to adopt additional conservation activities or enhancements that we like to call them to address other priority resource concerns out there. Getting a little ahead of myself here, but again, it's entire operation based. You get that payment for existing conservation efforts while getting a payment as well for different adoptions of different conservation practices and enhancements. These are 5-year contracts, as well as you do have the opportunity to renew for another 5-year contract when that 5-year contract length is approaching its end. Some popular CSP enhancements or activities that we do a lot of here in Nebraska: prescribed grazing, cover crops, nutrient and pest management, tree sub-establishment, and then pollinator seedings as well. Again, with CSP, it's land use based, so it's eligible for cropland, rangeland, as well as that non-industrial private forest land as well. Going again a little bit based on the rates, there's that existing activity payment that is garnered for existing activities, plus enhancement payments for installing those new practices. And as of last year, that minimum contract payment per year did jump up to $4,000. So that's up to $4,000 a year. Just to show you by the numbers here, nationwide, 80 million acres have been enrolled since 2010 in CSP. We are very, we've had a lot of interest in CSP here in Nebraska. We're actually the top, if not close to the top, acres wise with how many acres we have enrolled in CSP. So over that 14 million acre mark enrolled. And then currently that encompasses 1,000 active contracts. So again, CSP, a lot of the times between EQIP and CSP, you know, it's kind of that step up or that next level up from EQIP, where we're just treating maybe one resource concern through EQIP on one land unit. CSP is that jump up or that higher level type program that one could enroll in to, again, receive some current stewardship payments as well as adopt new activities or enhancements out on your operation. Moving forward to one of our newer programs. So this is the Regional Conservation Partnership Program, or RCPP. The main intent with RCPP is to really leverage our federal funds that we have here through NRCS, leveraging those funds with our partners out there on the landscape who can come in and apply for an RCPP project or opportunity to treat specific resource concerns or that they are wanting to prioritize or treat. So it's meant to be a leveraging type program and working one-on-one with our partners and leveraging our resources and funds and whatnot. But it is, again, I'll get into this. It covers specific programs like EQIP and CSP for our producers out there. So again, we're resource based. That is our main mission here, to provide those services and treat those resource concerns. Again, it's like EQIP and CSP. It can be on private or tribal ag lands, NIPF land, associated ag lands that would benefit those ag lands. RCPP projects are typically 5-year agreements with the partner. So we are entering with RCPP, we are entering into an agreement with a partner to basically leverage our funds and their resources and get their assistance in implementing conservation practices to our farmers and rangers. So on the who can apply for RCPP, ag operations or associations or groups of producers, local units of state or government, or a natural resources district, as we have those here in Nebraska, as opposed to conservation districts. Indian tribes, farmer co-ops, institutions of higher education, water districts, municipal water, municipalities, organizations that typically have an established working relationship with producers, ag producers out there. Those are this is just painting a picture of who our typical partners are that we work with RCPP on, and who could qualify. Again, the goal or the mission with it is to target our funding and leverage that partners' funding to treat specific resource concerns. Maybe it's a concern out there that we don't quite have the funding or the assistance through EQIP to really target it. With RCPP, we're kind of looking at treating specific things, maybe within a specific geographic area that's of high interest. Again, we're not getting away from providing that assistance to producers and landowners. That is the intent. Basically, it's just entering into these agreements, an RCPP agreement with a partner to help us implement those conservation practices and our resources to eligible producers. So we're amplifying that impact of funding and technical assistance with these partners through RCPP. So much like EQIP, again, we provide financial assistance to implement eligible conservation practices to those producers. With this RCPP funding that goes to the partner, typically the financial assistance piece is 75% in total for that RCPP project. And then the partner can also receive technical assistance funding to support and implement those conservation practices, help us with the planning, the design, and the installation, as well as the completion, the checkout of those practices. So those are where the technical assistance funds come into play, providing outreach and reporting on those outcomes that's outlined in the proposals that we review here when we select RCPP projects. Those are kind of the things that those technical assistance funds provide. Talking a little bit about the covered programs under RCPP. So this is just kind of a description of what types of different projects could be implemented through RCPP. So we have land management producer contracts. So like EQIP and CSP, we just have typical land management or producer contracts like EQIP and CSP through RCPP. We have rental type CRPs as well. So much like the Conservation Reserve Program, it's a temporarily, it's basically it's a rental payment for seeding down acres to grassland and whatnot. And there's some foregone income payments inserted into those. That is just an example of what an RCPP project could entail as well as different easement options as well. So those of course would follow our ACEP program and those components, ag lands easements or wetland reserve easements as well. And then it also allows for watershed wide or PL 566 funding as well through RCPP. There are different project types with RCPP that a partner could opt to qualify in. So we have what's called our RCPP Classic. That is where we, NRCS, we're reimbursing those producers directly for financial assistance activities. We're basically doing all the things that we would traditionally do and delivering a majority of the technical assistance and support to those producers in their contracts or easement contracts that they have through RCPP. Whereas in that case, the partner's primary role would be to provide outreach and contributions or whatnot that are outlined in their proposal, and delivering on those outcomes and whatnots. In the classic case, all the funding is obligated by the end of 5 years. RCPP alternative funding arrangements or AFAs, that is where the partner has more of a role in administering the project. So the partner installs those practices for producers and reimburses them for those financial assistance activities. They deliver all the technical assistance. NRCS has limited support in these types of in AFAs. So our main roles in the AFA opportunity is to confirm eligibility with the producers. So that would be adjusted gross income verification, and then HEL and wetland compliance and farm tract eligibility as well. And then all the funding has to be spent by the end of those 5 years. Just wanted to highlight some current ongoing RCPP projects that we have in the state here that we'll get into. But a lot of the time, wanted to highlight, especially, you know, our NRCS offices are aligned heavily with our natural resources districts or our NRDs throughout there. So traditionally, you know, we have a lot of partnership through the RCPP program with our 23 NRDs out there. Currently, all said and done with the 13 or 14 different RCPP projects that we have, that's involving 16 NRDs throughout 9 of those projects here in Nebraska. Wanted to highlight some of our newly awarded proposals through RCPP. We currently have, well, this past fiscal year here, we have 5 different ones that were awarded. So, and it outlines here the lead partner, growing and expanding Nebraska's grassland cores. That is with the Nebraska Community Foundation in conjunction with the Rainwater Basin Joint Venture. That is an alternative funding arrangement project type. You can see the funding amount of 18.7 million there. And then the status is obligated. So looking on down the 4 other ones there, we're currently either the project's been approved and the project's obligated, but then some of them that are currently in negotiation just means we haven't gone through we haven't officially approved the project agreement yet, but we're in negotiations to get that approved and going. This is just the list of active RCPP projects that are currently ongoing. So as I said, we got a list of about 13 there with different partners, varying things going on, whether it's for, you know, projects for soil health, wetlands, easements, grazing lands, and combating woody encroachment, water quality, and quantity as well. So 13 some active ongoing projects where we are, again, helping those producers out there and leveraging partner resources and NRCS resources. Just wanted to highlight a couple ongoing projects here. So the one we currently have with the Nature Conservancy or TNC here, It's in that Central Platte, Upper Big Blue NRD watershed here. It's in the last year of funding. That is for mainly cover crops, enrolling producers and getting them cover crop contracts to help store carbon, prevent soil erosion. And then also there are varying partners like Walmart involved that are getting some of those carbon credits and whatnot. And the goal is to kind of link those producers to the carbon markets as well. So that is something that the partner is facilitating in this project here. Again, another popular cover crop type RCPP that's pretty unique in regards to soil health, but also wildlife down in the southwest part of the state. Coming up on its last leg here as well. And this one is in conjunction with the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission. So again, another opportunity for cover cropping that we're allowing grazing on those acres as well as providing a habitat benefit. There's a certain window that we're applying the cover crop to help for nesting birds and whatnot. The Ogallala Aquifer and Platte River recovery is irrigation based. So improving irrigation efficiencies here in the Central Platte and Twin Platte NRD watersheds along the Platte River. Coming up on its last year here in 2026, but again, the goal is to reduce water consumptions and those depletions along the Platte River. Another project we have ongoing with the Nature Conservancy up in the Sandhills part of the state. Again, the core practices are brush management, combating that woody encroachment, prescribed grazing, range plantings, and as well as facilitating burns. In particular, I wanted to highlight an active sign-up RCPP that we currently have going here and runs through May 30th. This was an exciting project here, pre-approved in 2024, and it's in the Lower Loop River Basin. And the goal is to treat water quantity with issues in their groundwater that they're having there. So it's irrigation based as far as the practices goes. But along with that is the requirement to have nutrient management and then soil moisture probes with those irrigation systems as well to really treat those water quality resource concerns out there in the Lower Loop. It is a classic RCPP project. So again, that's primarily administered by our NRCS offices out there, as opposed to the partner doing that. Traditionally, all of our RCPPs follow EQIP deadlines. So I should note that our program deadlines are traditionally about the second or third week in November. So you can come in and sign an application for these programs at any time. It's a continuous sign-up process, but to be considered for the following fiscal year's funding, you would have to meet one of those application cutoffs that are typically in that second or third week in November. But we do have different initiatives, and sometimes with these projects, we have additional sign-up deadlines. So I say that because for this Lower Loop NRD RCPP, we do have an active sign-up that runs through May 30th to be considered for this year's funding. Just to highlight what the area is for this project, again, it's the Lower Loop NRD, and they're prioritizing their water quality quantity areas here that it's irrigated acres within their water quality and quantity areas within the Lower Loop. So if you're a producer out there in the Lower Loop area and interested in some irrigation practices and whatnot, now would be the time to get in and sign up for assistance. I know I'm running up on time here. I want to allow plenty of time for questions if we got them. So our next program we're getting into here is our easement program, or ACEP. So again, easements, long-term, wetlands, working ag lands. There are two components to our easement program. So it's our ALE and WRE ag land easement component and our wetland reserve easement. So with an ALE type easement, eligible partners are eligible for ALE to enroll working ag lands and keeping those ag lands working. That is what the intent of ALE is. It can be on a private landowner's land, but the thing with ALE is you have to find a lead partner to help you enroll that easement. So thinking a lot of our NRDs are a lot of times that those partners and whatnot. Nebraska Land Trust helps facilitate those things as well. If you go to the ACEP NRCS website or Google that, there is a list of partners per state. If it is something of interest to you, you could potentially latch onto and find one of those partners to enter into the conversation with. So yes, the intent is to keep working lands working out there on the landscape. Our WRE component is focused towards wetlands. So thinking of inundated, annually drowned out lands out there on cropland and whatnot. You know, if you want to take those out of production and you know, get some sort of payment on those acres and enroll those in an easement type thing, that is what the WRE component is of the ACEP program. As far as what it pays, the payment rate is 95% of the appraised value across the state. We call those, it used to be based on different tiers or factors, but we've gone to a 95% just straight value based on the appraisal across the state. So those not to exceed rates that you see for irrigated cropland and all other land uses on the slide here. It's up to a 95% rate, not to exceed $13,000 or $9,000 of that. Another component of the WRE program with the 2018 Farm Bill is the Wetland Reserve Enhancement Partnership. So again, it's a partnership type component of the WRE program that we currently have an ongoing sign up for that ends here May 30th. In conjunction with a lot of times the Rainwater Basin Joint Venture. It is specific to the different playa wetland complexes that we have here in Nebraska. So the 4 that you see there, it's specific to those playa wetlands. And you know, part of the partnership is to also help with additional practices or incentives on top of the WRE payment. So, you know, thinking of pivot modifications and different tires and whatnot to be able to cross those wetlands, that is what that partnership is offering, and they are coming in and supplementing part of those payments as well. Last couple of slides here before we get into questions. I know we're coming up a little bit on the last 15 minutes. But with all these programs, just want to highlight that the intent is to be locally led and locally driven. So how we accomplish that is year after year, we have local work group meetings throughout the state. They are NRD based. So our 23 natural resource districts, there are 23 meetings that take place across the state, typically in January and February. And the intent is for them to discuss local resource concerns and priorities with these programs. It's open to all partners in the public. And then, you know, that's kind of the driver behind what these funds and what these programs are going towards in the different NRDs and watersheds. So along with the local work groups, and helping us drive that is our state technical committee. That committee is a state committee that meets quarterly here up in Lincoln. And the goal of that, or the intent, is to make recommendations ultimately to the state conservationist, again, to help put our money where it's best served in treating what the needs are of the state. I think with that, Rob, if you want to
Yeah, absolutely.
share what you'd like to share there, and then we'll take any questions with the remaining time.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks,
okay.
Connor. Thanks for that great overview. And yeah, I just wanted to, for my closing thoughts here, and just wanted to share out that, our staff is working, here with the farmers and ranchers across the state. And, we know how important that voluntary private lands conservation is for our farmers and ranchers. So we as NRCS recognize that. A few things just wanted to share out regarding staffing. We have some staff members that have signed up for and likely will be approved for the deferred resignation program. And so the message that I wanted to share out here today is that our staff's work can provide the office coverage the best that we can across the state. I would highly encourage producers to reach out ahead of time and get an appointment just to ensure that the person that you want to talk to is available to assist you. They could be out in the field in a field visit or in a meeting or whatever the case may be. So I think I would just encourage that if you do want to reach out, please call ahead or at least get time or an appointment. If you have any specific questions, the best point of contact for you is to reach out to your local service center. You all know them, interact with them, reach out to them. That's the best source of best point of contact. Regarding the Inflation Reduction Act or IRA funded contracts, we can continue to work with our farmers and ranchers to document practice completion when it's completed, and we are able to process payments related to the Inflation Reduction Act contracts that we have across Nebraska. But currently, we do not have approval to enter into any new producer contracts with our producers using IRA funds. So wanted to share that, and I think that gets to one of the questions in the chat, but we can go into detail if we need to on that. But again, just want to say thanks for the opportunity, and what a pleasure it is to get this to share out a lot. As you can see, a lot of different things happening, Brad and Ryan. So thank you for that, and I think we can turn it over to get to a few questions.
Well, thank you, Robert, and thank you, Connor, for the information, the insight on NRCS programs, reminding us that it is a very broad portfolio, and even within each of those programs, there are a number of things to potentially address. I've always been reminded, I think, we don't even get into the complexity of all of the conservation practices that exist in the handbook. You highlighted some of them, Connor, but for an individual producer, it's really first, what do I want to do or what do I want to address? And then you find out, here's the list of practices that might help. Here are the programs where those practices might be funded. And whether you think about the program or the practice, there are multiple opportunities, which alludes to a question I have, and we're going to do some rapid fire questions. So if we can do that. But the producer's first instinct may be, and the landowner as well, maybe, how do I use this program to do what I want to do? Perhaps it ought to be, what do I want to do? And who do I contact to first talk about that? How does the conservation planning and the technical assistance component start? How does that work to help a producer or landowner sort of approach the opportunities they face?
Yeah, well, great question. And I'll start, and and Connor can help me if I missed anything. But really, it starts with reaching out to that local service center and getting time where our conservation planner can get out in the field with you as the producer and really look at your specific resource concerns, right? I mean, it's addressing your specific resource concerns. It's developing a conservation plan. And then, like Connor alluded to in the presentation, the first thing is what we call it technical assistance. That's the first step. Get the technical assistance, get the conservation plan based on your objectives and what you want to do. And then we work through the process on if there's any funding opportunities.
Okay. Thank you for that. Okay, so some questions at hand. You did talk about the funding freezes and that affects some of the IRA funded programs as opposed to the Farm Bill funded components of those programs. So you're servicing existing contracts, new contracts would be on hold, or potential new contracts would be on hold at this time.
Specifically for IRA, but we have
Specific
full,
for IRA. Okay.
but we have full authority to work on Farm Bill programs that Conor.
Yeah. Yeah. So none of the other programs, none of the other existing opportunities have the same sort of hold and freeze. Okay. I will relate that to a program that you don't technically have the primary authority for, but do offer some support. And that's CRP, the Conservation Reserve Program. It's administered through FSA, but NRCS has a role, I believe, right, in some of the planning and practice implementation. And that is a program where existing contracts are also being serviced, but there is not a new signups are not eligible at the present time. There's not a new general enrollment announcement, and there's not a sign up for continuous or other provisions. So to clarify, that's another part of the conservation portfolio. It's related to the NRCS work. Okay. Some specific questions about EQIP. Conor, you described it. EQIP is providing what you called incentive payments. Historically, we sort of used the term cost share, but whatever we call it, what does it cover and what doesn't it cover? In this case, the question specifically, does it cover seed, so materials, or does it cover equipment, or is it the equipment itself or the equipment operation? Can you sort of walk through that very, very quickly?
Yeah, absolutely. So it covers multiple things, depending on the practice. So yes, if it's a grass seeding, range planting, or cover crop, what's worked into that payment is the cost of the seed. And I'm talking like the total cost of the practice. All those factors and components are lumped into there. So the seed, the labor, the materials to install that practice, that is what makes up that total cost. And then regionally, we come up with what that total cost looks like based on kind of a regional economy of scale, and then come up with that ultimately that 75%. I'll just say a cost share rate. So yes, it's it's the seeding, it's the labor. Also there's a foregone income component worked in there as well for taking cropland, irrigated acres, and turning them to dry land. Let's say there's foregone income worked in there as well.
And to clarify, it wouldn't be the full cost of equipment, it would be the operational cost of that equipment, right?
Sure. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Another question that came into us, and it dates back or relates back to some of the funding questions. In the RCPP, you're working with many partners. This is a question specifically about some of the tribal set-asides, some of the set-asides that you've had in terms of funding and direction. What can you tell us about sort of the status of those or the direction of those? What might stakeholders expect across the state?
Sure. So currently, as it comes to tribal, this last year's RCPP sign up for fiscal year 2024, there was a specific tribal competition that ran alongside our RCPP general competition as well. So that is what that tribal piece looked like for opportunities for tribes to enter into those specific tribal projects. I think the second part of that question was, what's it look like for this year? Currently, we don't know if we're going to have an RCPP notice of funding opportunity, or NOFOs, as we like to call them, for partners to submit proposals for. We don't know at this point in time if we'll have that opportunity this year or not. So did I hit that question?
Yes, I think it reminds us there is uncertainty. You're implementing what you can and what you have the authority for, but you also have some uncertainty in terms of directions and program opportunities going forward. Okay. I would offer in here a reminder as well. because there was a question that came up, and to clarify, well, actually, it was a question that said, we miss you, Conor, but they from your Seward NRCS office and some of your good friends and colleagues there. But it also referenced a question that I failed to state in my introduction, which was this webinar, like every other webinar that we do in our Center for Ag Profitability series, is recorded, and an archive version of this recording will be available on our website. Our Center for Ag Profitability website is cap.unl.edu. You can find this recording up there soon, probably late this afternoon. The slides, with NRCS's permission, the slides would also be available, and those will be posted up there along with the webinar. But that, I believe, answers the questions we have before us here. As I alluded to, a reminder first of this webinar will be posted. Future webinars are already being scheduled, and if you go to our Center for Ag Profitability website, you'll find a list, you'll find a webinar link that will take you to both the upcoming schedule as well as the long archive list of all of our previous webinar recordings. You'll find lots of resources there. You will also find publications, podcasts, tools, and references to other materials and resources that can be of use to you in your farm management and ag economic questions there. So with that, I want to thank our panelists today, Robert Lawson, the state conservationist with USDA's Natural Resource Conservation Service in Nebraska, and Conor Word, our specialist here to talk about programs with us today. Thank you both for your time. Thank you to our participants for being involved in today's webinar, and we look forward to the next time we can talk about programs and opportunities.
Brad.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.